In the heart of New York City, where the streets pulse with life and the skyline gleams like a monument to human ambition, a storm was about to break inside the Manhattan criminal courthouse. The city was captivated, and the world was watching. Every news station, every podcast, every online forum was buzzing about the trial of the decade, the state of New York versus Daniel Reeves. Daniel Reeves wasn't just any defendant. He was a 42-year-old billionaire, a man who had climbed from the dusty streets of Brooklyn to the penthouses of Manhattan. His name was attached to some of the most iconic skyscrapers in the city, his face had graced the covers of business magazines, and his public image was one of charm and philanthropy. But now, all of that meant nothing. He was in court, accused of murdering his childhood friend and business partner, Tommy, Wilson. The story was straight out of a Hollywood script. Daniel and Tommy had grown up together, inseparable kids with big dreams of making it in the city. Together, they built a real estate empire, turning run-down neighborhoods into luxury living spaces and making billions in the process. But beneath the polished smiles and celebratory champagne toasts, there were cracks. According to prosecutors, greed, betrayal, and a $500 million development deal had turned brotherhood into bloodshed. They claimed that on a rainy Thursday night in December, Daniel had invited Tommy to his luxury penthouse on the 45th floor of his newest building, a sleek glass tower with a balcony that offered a glittering view of the city. There, the prosecution alleged, an argument escalated to violence. And before the night ended, Tommy Wilson was dead, his body found shattered on the sidewalk below. The city went into shock. Tommy had been beloved for his humble personality and community work, and Daniel was now the man everyone loved to hate. Cameras followed him everywhere, from the moment he was led out in handcuffs to the day the trial began. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere was electric. The courtroom was packed with journalists, spectators, and sketch artists. Even celebrities slipped quietly into the gallery, drawn to the real-life drama. Judge Rebecca Harris, a stern figure with a reputation for zero tolerance for theatrics, presided over the trial. The prosecution, led by Assistant District Attorney Michael Ramirez, came out swinging. He painted Daniel Reeves as a man intoxicated by wealth and power, willing to destroy anyone who got in his way. He presented texts and emails exchanged between Daniel and Tommy in the weeks leading up to the death, heated arguments about the $500 million project known as Skyline Harbor. Tommy had threatened to back out of the deal, claiming Daniel was cutting corners and hiding financial risks. In one email, Daniel wrote, "You're either with me or against me. There's no middle ground anymore." Then came the witnesses. A building concierge testified that he saw Tommy enter the building at 10:43 p.m. and leave, never. Security camera footage showed Daniel pacing in the lobby minutes before the fall, his hands shaking, his face pale. A bartender from a nearby lounge said Daniel had been drinking heavily earlier that evening, muttering angrily to himself. And perhaps most damning of all, the medical examiner testified that the angle of Tommy's fall suggested he had been pushed. The prosecution's story was clear. Daniel had lured his best friend to the penthouse, argued with him, and in a moment of rage, pushed him over the railing to his death. But the defense had a different story to tell. Daniel's lead attorney, Rachel Sinclair, a razor-sharp lawyer known for dismantling high-profile cases, told the jury that this was a tragic accident, not a murder. She painted Tommy as reckless, impulsive, and heavily intoxicated that night. She presented photos of Tommy from past parties, standing on ledges and joking about heights, to plant the idea that Tommy could have easily leaned too far over the balcony. The defense also brought in a forensic engineer, who testified that the balcony rail was unusually low, and that a strong gust of wind that night could have contributed to the fall. They claimed Daniel's pacing in the lobby wasn't guilt, but panic and shock after seeing his best friend fall before his eyes. And then came Daniel Reeves himself. The courtroom fell silent when he took the stand. He looked nothing like the confident billionaire from the magazines. His navy blue suit hung loosely on his frame, and his voice trembled as he recounted his life with Tommy, their childhood in Brooklyn, their first building flip, the moment they made their first million together. He swore on his life that he would never hurt Tommy, that he loved him like a brother. He described the moment of horror when Tommy fell, saying, "I ran to the balcony. I screamed his name. I will hear that sound in my nightmares for the rest of my life." For a moment, some jurors seemed to believe him. But then, the bombshell came. The prosecution played a secret audio recording from Daniel's office, captured weeks before the incident during an unrelated corporate investigation. On the tape, Daniel's voice was cold, angry. "If Tommy keeps getting in my way, I'll take care of it myself." The jury gasped. Murmurs filled the courtroom. Rachel Sinclair jumped to her feet, arguing that the recording was out of context. Daniel claimed he meant he would cut Tommy out of the business, not harm him. But the damage was done. For 3 tense weeks, the trial gripped the city. Headlines screamed, "Billionaire betrayal," and "Penthouse murder." Talk shows debated whether wealth should ever buy freedom. On social media, public opinion was split. Half believed Daniel was a cold-blooded killer, half thought he was a victim of circumstance and media hysteria. When the jury finally went into deliberation, the city held its breath. For 18 long hours, they weighed his fate. Then, on a snowy Friday afternoon, they returned. On the charge of second-degree murder, the foreman said, his voice steady, "We find the defendant guilty." Gasps filled the room. Daniel closed his eyes, his head sinking into his hands. His sister sobbed in the back row. Outside, crowds cheered as the news spread like wildfire. The billionaire had fallen. Weeks later, Judge Harris sentenced Daniel Reeves to 25 years to life in a maximum security prison. The man who once built glass towers that touched the clouds would now live behind bars, staring at concrete walls. His empire crumbled, investors pulled out, projects were cancelled, and his name became synonymous with tragedy and greed. Yet even after the trial, questions lingered. Some believed justice was served. Others whispered that the case was built on circumstantial evidence, that perhaps Daniel really was just a man destroyed by one night of horrible misfortune. In America, the land of dreams and law, the story of Daniel Reeves became a cautionary tale. That power can crumble, friendships can turn fatal, and in a courtroom, perception can be as powerful as truth.